Here. Our next guest is a professor of American literature in the English department at BYU. He earned his bachelor's and master's at BYU and his doctorate at Brown. Been teaching on campus since 2002. Also a former defensive back for the BYU football team, 1992 and 1993. Our pleasure to welcome Frank Christianson to the Wise Guys. Thanks for being here.
This is so intimidating.
Is it really?
Look at us. Professor on Wise Guys. Yeah, I don't know.
You know, a lot of people never thought that would ever happen. That mostly know us. Like, really, you're bringing professors in, and yes, we are.
Yeah, and you're not the first. You're not the first,
and won't be the last.
And how about those Cougarettes that were just
phenomenal?
Here? Unbelievable.
That kind of track record is insane. That kind of dominance over that span of time.
Yeah, and it's I'm all, very competitive, and they compete against like SEC and Big Ten. Like they're literally at the very, very top. I would say they're like the Alabama, but Alabama's tapered off a little bit in football. Mm-hmm. But they would be the equivalent of Alabama in college football when they were on their run of dominance, or Georgia. That's what BYU is in collegiate dance. It's crazy.
So you're here because you've got your own story.
That's right.
And a lot of the students that take your classes might not know it.
Yeah.
But they're going to find out about it tonight. And I let's start with this question. When's the last time someone other than myself has asked you to try and what it was like to try and tackle Marshall Faulk in his prime in college? When's the last time you've been asked that question?
I literally don't remember.
So it's been a long time.
Yeah.
Decades.
But tonight's the night we revisit that. What was it like?
So I only have 2 flashes of memory. This is just in prep for meeting with you guys. I was going back and looking at stats and some film, and the 2 distinct memories I have from that game are, one, him coming through the line, and just the line like the parting the Red Sea, just opening up with me sitting there, about 8 yards deep.
And you could just see him plainly, nobody between you and him.
And given how quick he was, the thing you would have expected is that he would have tried to sidestep me.
Yeah.
But he hit me head on. I should have said it differently. I should have said I hit him head on.
Yeah, let's go with that.
But it was the first and only stinger I've ever had, like a true pinch nerve.
From Marshall Faulk.
From Marshall Faulk, just fired down my whole left side and kind of stunned me. Yeah.
Did you take him down or did he keep going?
You know what? I think I then had help. Taking
you slowed him down enough that your buddies could get there.
Piled on.
Yeah.
And then the other memory is that long run of his. And, it was other side of the field for me, so I never really had a chance. But even my teammate Dewey Gray chased him. He was one of the fastest guys on our team, and just getting
we've had Dewey a few times on here, and we've talked to him about some of those games, and he's just like, that dude was so much faster than even I expected.
Yeah.
That he would just run away from you.
And you can watch him on YouTube. All those highlights, BYU, San Diego State.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
There's a 3-year stretch there. Like, if we go back to that time, San Diego State and BYU were just 2 of the more explosive offenses in the country, and kind of setting the tone. And some classic battles. 91, 52-52. I called that game down in San Diego. That was nuts. That gave me a headache calling that game. My wife had a spot. She never wanted to do that ever again.
Yeah.
92, San Diego State won in Provo, 45-38. 93, BYU won in San Diego, 45-44. What was it about those 2 programs back then that created these just classics?
Yeah, I don't know. We had, we had a long tradition of heavy firepower. And even when we were running through quarterbacks like they were, we had that one season, I guess it was 92, where
we went through 4 or 5.
4 starters.
Right. Yeah.
And people kept getting hurt. And, but we still, I think, our scheme was such that whoever stepped in could still pull off some amazing things. But I also kind of felt like, and this is probably, I don't know what this is, but I kind of felt like some of the other teams had started to catch up with us and kind of figure things out, maybe even adopt some of our schemes.
Right.
And we really hit some amazing offensive programs in those couple of years, and they really, just some serious shootouts.
Yeah. But no, fun times.
Fun for the fans.
To watch.
Fun to call. Yeah.
Defensive coordinator, maybe not so much.
Right. Ken Schmidt.
Yeah, exactly.
You faced Faulk, and let's talk about him for a little bit, in 92 and 93. In 92, he ran for 315 yards and 3 touchdowns. That was at LaVell Edwards Stadium.
Yeah.
How did he do that? You guys were a good defense. How does a guy come in and run for over 300?
I mean, I don't think, at least I never saw anybody with that kind of speed, in pads speed. So I don't know what his 40 time was, but it's a whole different thing, right? When you're fully layered up.
Yeah.
And I think if all they needed to do was to give him a little bit of momentum, if he could get 4 yards, he was already at full speed. And so once he had any kind of open field, it was incredibly difficult to track him down. And in fact, if you go back and look at the film, people frequently are just literally taking the wrong angle,
Is it just because his acceleration is so good? Or
Yeah. I mean, he probably could have been an Olympic sprinter. I don't know.
Man. So we fast forward a year to 93 in November. You guys beat San Diego State 45-44 down at Jack Murphy at the time, before it was Qualcomm. You had 3 tackles in that game from your safety spot. They gave the ball to Marshall 32 times. He had 252 yards and 2 touchdowns, including a 71-yarder, which might have been the one you were talking about.
Yeah.
So in your opinion, is he the best college back you've ever seen?
Oh, by far. Yeah.
Really?
I mean, I think I mentioned today we played against Jerome Bettis at Notre Dame, but for what a running back can do, like as a lethal weapon, he's the one who had the best tools, and he was amazing.
BYU professor and former safety Frank Christianson is on the Wise Guys, presented by Brady Plus, distributed by the Deseret News. In those 2 seasons you mentioned, you played Notre Dame twice. Bettis was on the field for one of those.
He was called the Bus, right?
The Bus.
What was he like to try and tackle?
So my one memory of that game, his senior year was 92 in South Bend, and we kind of stuffed him up that first half, and in fact, I almost made a singular contribution to the outcome of that game. We'd slowed him down. He'd try to run through the line, and I hit him as he was being slowed up by like 5 or 6 other guys, and kind of kinked his neck. I was afraid it was almost a late hit. I would get called on it.
Yeah.
But he had to come out of the game. And I thought I had put Jerome Bettis out.
You had sidelined the bus.
If you put him out and you won, you would have been the reason.
I would have been a hero. Right?
But he came back. Then,
he came back with a vengeance. I think I think he didn't have a huge game. It was over 100 yards maybe, but most of that was in the second half, and he was making up for lost time.
So you made him mad.
But he just
he poked the bus or the bear, whichever you want to call him.
And then the bus came back.
Yeah, and still relatively fast for his size, for how big he was.
And then he went off to be a pro, and he was a stud. Yeah. And as you watched his career and knowing you had that moment of head to head, did it get pretty cool for you?
It was. I mean, he was a legend at Pittsburgh. And, that was a fun memory for me.
During your 2 years at BYU, out on the field, 67 tackles, 44 solo, had an interception against Hawaii. How much fun was that to be out there playing with your brothers in that environment?
It was great. I mean, especially here, home games were, amazing. Just the roar of the crowd and just to be on that field is such a beautiful environment. It's fun to even now have, like, when the games are nationally televised and the announcers, ESPN or whoever comes in, how in awe they are of the setting, and then you get those overviews of the stadium against the backdrop of the mountains, and it really is just a spectacular, beautiful game.
Well, you played against some pretty big programs: Ohio State, Notre Dame twice, UCLA, Penn State. Today, BYU plays 10 power conference opponents in the same season. From your position now as a professor, since 2022, to watch all these, since 2002, to watch all these changes take place on a field where you used to play, is it mind-boggling?
It is, yeah. It's hard to imagine, I mean, we're talking WAC, it's the days that I was playing, and this is a far cry. I mean, this is top tier. And it's incredible. I mean, what happened last season, who would have guessed, that we would step up and perform that well. But yeah, it's really inspiring to see how the program's evolved.
When you watch it from your chair now, and you think back all the way back to 92, I have to think back another 10 years before that, or almost. What do you think's changed the most for BYU as a program since that time to now?
That's a really good question. Because a lot of things still seem really familiar, just as I watch the players out there. It's not like, the individual athletes have been transformed into like superhuman or anything. It's still kind of the same body types and sizes and speeds and stuff. I don't know. I mean, the one thing that's been amazing to watch is just, and maybe it's just a function of the years that I was on the field, but in moments where the one game I caught in person this last season was Oklahoma State.
Oh, yeah.
And where you think, there's no way that we're going to pull this off. Just the kind of resilience, the kind of, intestinal fortitude that you see in this most recent team. It's kind of, you kind of almost grow to expect miracles,
I guess it's a good thing when the team expects miracles, right?
Yeah.
That mindset's hard to come by. And you played on some teams that expected to win. Mm-hmm. How big is that as a player? How big is that for a team to just believe that they belong there and they can win? And how much does that contribute to the winning formula?
Clearly, it makes a huge difference. And mindset, you think about, especially with defenses. I mean, you can be a defense that plays defensively, or you can be a defense that attacks, and that's really is a function of mindset. I mean, you need the athleticism and the preparation to be able to have that mindset. But I think you compare 93 to this last year, we were like the lowest turnover off defense, maybe in the NCAA that year. Yeah. And this last year, turnovers. You literally expected a couple of turnovers a game.
Right.
And you got to chalk that up to mindset to some degree. Right?
Speaking of how you think and how you thought, at any time during your playing days, did you ever see yourself as a humanities professor with 3 degrees, including a specific focus of literature of the American West while you're trying to tackle Marshall Faulk?
Yeah. I was an English major, and I knew this life. My dad was a college professor, taught here at BYU. And so, I love the subject matter, but there weren't a lot of us on the team. Actually, Tom Young was an English major, I think. Mm-hmm. And there have been others. Kalani was an English major.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
So, and through the years, I've had some players come through my classroom. Johnny Harling was an English major. Right. So, but no, I wasn't necessarily thinking at that point. I was probably thinking more law school, like some of my older siblings.
A lot of English majors, say this is a great preparation for the writing and the reading that I need to be able to do.
Like my older brother, Jordan Christianson, I think you might know.
I know Jordan, yeah.
Yeah, was an English major and then went on to law school. So I had older siblings who'd all followed that path.
Yeah.
But I decided to go the academic route.
So you go. How did you finally get on that path? How do you make that transition from, hey, I'm playing football, I'm an English major, to, hey, not only am I going to pursue this thing, I'm going Ivy League route. I want to be a professor. This is what I want to do. When did that come into your mind, and how did you pursue that?
Yeah. It's funny that, as I got to the end of my undergrad career, I was keeping my options open. So I took the GMAT, the LSAT, the GRE, and was still thinking about law school and even business school. But what I thought was, and you talk about the specific route, that played a big part. I thought if I can get into a program, I was interested in pursuing academics. If I can get into the program that's going to optimize my chances of getting a tenure track position later, then I'll do it. If I don't, then I won't. And Brown was my top choice, and that worked out. And so I kept on that path.
What was that like because you're competing at a very high level in football, and now academically you're competing at the highest level at Brown University is very competitive. What was that like?
Well, one thing it unfortunately didn't help, and I realized this later when I had 2 younger brothers who both played for the U, played football, twins, and they both ended up going on to med school. but their football background was a real asset.
Yeah.
You know, and some of those professional degrees, whether you're going to business or medicine, that kind of background makes a difference. When you're applying to PhDs in English, they're not so interested that you played Division
They don't
I
think that's
football.
cool or anything like that. No.
So,
Did they almost act like, okay, well, that might have been a waste of time to occupy your time.
Despite
But what
that.
else? In spite of that, what did you do?
yeah. Well, actually, I just didn't even bring it up.
Oh, see, you were smart.
Yeah. So, it was all about just academic performance and those standardized tests, and then really the luck of the draw. Because in the end, there were like only 8 people in my entering class, and it's just a really small cohort, and that's how it works.
Our pleasure to have former BYU safety and current professor Frank Christianson on the Wise Guys, live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and wiseguys.com. Any noticeable differences between BYU students today compared to when you first started teaching in 2002?
That's a loaded question.
Yeah. Well, this is the Wise Guys.
Yeah,
What have you noticed?
Yeah. One thing that's not different is that they are just as smart as they've always been, and that means they're really smart, right?
Yeah.
BYU students have always been incredibly bright and prepared, right, for the most part, for academic work at this level. But things are changing. I mean, there's no getting away from the fact that our brains are literally changing in the digital world. Right. So I teach now an intro to the major course that focuses almost entirely on the neuroscience of reading. And, we are hardwired for language. It's part of our evolutionary heritage. Right. But reading and writing are not. That's something we've kind of just come up with in the last 6,000 years as human beings. We have to repurpose a bunch of different neuronal clusters to accomplish that task. And the more time we spend on screens, the more we are taught to read fast and shallow. We're actually encountering more language, more words than we ever have, but it's fast and shallow.
Like the USA Today when it came online.
Yeah.
Shorter,
snippets.
a little more pizzazz, and you can get through it.
Yeah, instead of slow and deep. And so that's literally changing how our brains work. And so, ultimately the message of that class is how English majors are going to save the world. Because you're going to teach people this capacity.
It's interesting because Dave and I have spent our whole careers in television. And television, the entire time we've been in it, has been a series of sound bites that you put together to put a show together.
Yeah.
A long piece might be 3 minutes. And so we work in sound bites. And then we wanted to do this show, and we thought, will there be an appetite for a show where we actually get people on and we talk to them for a long time and we go deep and we discuss topics and people can get to know them. And to our pleasant surprise, there's a lot of people out there that still have an interest in going deeper.
Yeah.
Are you finding that as you try to teach this, that there are those that are interested in doing that? And could there be a shift, or is it just moving so quickly in the other direction that there's no chance?
Well, I think you're right, though. There is a benefit to the new media environment in terms of long form conversation. That's something else that's emerged that's I think valuable. I don't think it's inevitable that we're going to just entirely lose this cognitive capacity and just essentially look like the people on that spaceship in Wall-E, where we're just everything is kind of just fed to us. But it is going to take work to preserve the ability to read, like hard things. We can do hard things. We can read hard things.
Like Isaiah.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Well, actually, you make an interesting point in terms of our students' readiness because of that tradition of engagement with Scripture.
Yeah.
They do tend to come better equipped, I think, than students across the country to read and annotate and think, right, and reflect on what they're reading. Yeah. So we try to capitalize on that.
Have you taken a dive deep enough in, like, people will say, oh, this person has such a great knack for language and reading and comprehension because their mom and dad started to read to them when they were tiny. Yeah. And then they fell in love with books when they were really, really young. And then they never kind of got out of that habit. Is there an advantage to that? So folks, parents that are watching from home, to starting them and reading to them and getting them to love reading, does that correlate to success academically and out in whatever they do after that?
It makes a huge difference. In fact, I think the magic word used there is habit. Reading, in the way I'm thinking about it in terms of a cognitive experience, is a habit of mind. It's a habit you can cultivate. In fact, for me, it's less now in a class like that about the quantity of reading. In fact, we've cut down on the reading and just the experience of reading, of cutting out all distractions and using the book as like a yoga mat. It's just the occasion to help your mind enter this kind of deeper, meditative, reflective space. And so cultivating that habit of mind early on makes a massive difference.
All right, from your level of expertise, if you have a teenage son or daughter who's just into the scrolling, or college kid into the scrolling, or even a middle-aged person who's constantly into this, can you get lost in scrolling all day?
This is what we do.
Yeah.
My thumb's got too much.
How do you get out of it? How important is it to get out of it?
It's really important. Yeah. I mean, that is the training system. That's a kind of cognitive training. It's the algorithm seeking us. We do a lot with information literacy too. And that whole question of, do you seek information or do you encounter it? And the answer is, for most of us, most of the time, we're encountering information.
Whatever comes their way.
Right.
Which means we are being sought, right, by an algorithm
Sure.
to present us with information, good, bad, irrelevant mostly, right? A lot of it's bad information, though, misinformation. And so it's actually really important to recognize what the scrolling is doing to our brains. And I'm not saying never scroll, but it has to be countered with these other kinds of reading and engagement with information that is essentially harder to do, right? It doesn't supply these microscopic dopamine hits that scrolling does. It's about, persisting with words that maybe aren't giving you a easy or simple message.
Well, especially if you're scrolling Seinfeld clips because they're all funny.
Yeah.
And you know them all, and you can quote them. And it's like,
basically, we're all getting worked by the system, right?
Yeah, we
need to work the system to our benefit, right?
Exactly.
So I love that.
To swing back, and before we hit you up with 5 questions, then would you say the difference between today's BYU student and when you started is not necessarily how smart they are, because they're all smart? Is it the attention span?
It's the span of attention. It's the quality of attention. And when I describe that, it's actually, and you already acknowledged this, that's us too.
Yeah.
Right. So we've all gone through this kind of epigenetic shift in the last 15 years, I'd say, especially. So we can all relate to each other.
Sure.
When I'm talking to my students about these challenges, I'm describing myself and then projecting it on them, and they're nodding their heads and recognizing.
So when you're talking today, they're going, you're right. I
Yep.
do that. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they know how hard it is to just slow down and read and think deep without distraction. So how did you put it again? Attention. Yeah. That's back to this quality of attention. I could even recommend a book called Reader Come Home, The Reading Brain in the Digital Age. It's essentially a discussion about how do we retrain our attentions using books.
This is fascinating. We could do shows on this, which would be really, really fun.
How about you tell your
topic.
students to get on YouTube and watch your highlights?
Yes.
I'll just
Tell
tell
them
you
to do
this
what?
and take it
conversation.
deep. They can come watch this and they can listen to you for quite a period of time here.
Yeah.
Let's go back to football for just a minute, because I know you follow it closely and you look at it from an analytical perspective and from having been on the field. So a remarkable season this last year. So what do you expect of this team this fall? Do they have a repeat performance? Can they improve on this performance?
Yeah, I don't know. It's funny. Do you follow the Wrexham AFC story? The little soccer team that Ryan Reynolds.
Oh, yes. I just saw an ad for it last night. Yeah.
Because they got that documentary that goes with
the
it.
documentary's coming.
And they just, each succeeding years, they move up through the English leagues, keep exceeding expectations. But with each new season, they've already, done more than anyone expected. So the next season, everybody tempers their expectations, so they can't possibly do as well as they did the last time. And in each case, they've done better. But so, of course, the natural thing would be to say 8 or 9 wins, right? would be great.
Regress to the mean.
Yeah, right. Consolidate.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know though. I mean, I think there's reason to be optimistic that they could repeat and do as well. So many of those games could have gone either way last year. That's the thing. It's just hard to know, you know. And I'm excited for the defense. I think there's some really interesting players. What's his name? There's the safety who had
Tanner. Do you like watching Tanner Wall?
Tanner, yeah, well, I identify with him. In fact,
That's what I'm saying, because he reminds me of you a little bit in that Tanner's a first-team academic All-American.
Yeah.
He's brilliant,
Yeah.
and yet he plays with aggression, and he's always where he's supposed to be. He's top-graded guy back there, never makes a mistake, gets everybody else lined up.
Yeah.
That you relate to him, right?
Very much so, yeah. And I looked at his stats. I couldn't remember my stats. So my 93 season looked almost identical. He had 2 more picks than I did, but the tackles and breakups and those kinds of things were almost the same. I really like his game. And I assume he's top of the depth chart right now.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Top of the depth chart, captain, preseason all-conference probably,
The only other thing is that the D line, every DB will say this, you know, if you've got a D line that can penetrate and contain, it makes all the difference, right? It's everything.
All right, before we hit you with 5 questions, your interception against Hawaii.
Yeah.
A lot of times we remember stuff from our youth. Do you remember that play? What happened?
I remember really well.
What happened?
It was a Hail Mary. So, and I think I just happened to be the tallest guy in the bunch because there were like 6 of us that went up for it.
Yeah.
And it somehow ended up in my gut. But it's funny, I found that just this last year and clipped the little piece out of it and texted it to my kids.
Yeah.
Just because it's kind of funny how I try to do like a little dance afterwards. But the game was over at that point. So I don't think anybody noticed. I don't know if the announcer even said that
They
there was a
just
pick.
even acknowledge it?
Yeah, it's like I think people were just getting up out of their seats and heading home.
Oh,
you know,
pick. Whatever.
But I was happy to stand there on the
fun.
field. And
Hey,
celebrate.
that links you to the program forever.
Yeah.
Having been out there and chased it around, made plays. That's awesome.
Right.
It's fun stuff.
Yeah.
Forever linked. Hey, one other guy for you to watch for everybody else to watch for. We had Chase Roberts on last week.
Yeah.
And Chase was talking about the new receiver, Tiger Bachmeier.
Mm-hmm.
And we said, what's your first impression? He goes, no, this guy's smart. And then we looked at him, he goes like, no, crazy smart. And he goes, he graduated in 2.5 years from Stanford with a major in computer science.
Oh, wow.
And he says, we go through something and we walk out and he's teaching it. Like he already knows it. So it's another guy to kind of relate to. You're like, oh, here's a really smart wide receiver that's also really athletic. So on both sides of the ball, we got a couple of geniuses over there. So it's kind of fun.
That's great.
We'll have to watch for him this next year.
One of the guys to watch for, I hope, is my nephew, Rowan Ray, who made the team as a receiver.
Rowan Ray.
Hopefully
Ray.
he'll get some playing
That's right.
time.
Cool. So. 5 questions for Frank Christianson, who hit Jerome Bettis so hard knocked him out of the game. Is presented by StrategySquare.co. You ready?
Okay, your favorite sports movie?
We just lost Gene Hackman, so I've got to say Hoosiers.
Hoosiers is a classic.
Yeah, that's a classic.
You, me, and Marie Osmond.
Yeah, Marie Osmond's favorite.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
when she
That's
came on the
cool.
show, she did not hesitate. Of course, Marie married a basketball player, so
That's right. That's right.
Your favorite singer or band?
I'm not a super fanboy, but of anybody in particular. But since I just saw Jack White in Salt Lake this week, I got to say Jack White.
Jack White.
Or earlier, the White Stripes. Yeah.
Very nice.
All right.
So that fits. That's kind of his genre.
Yeah, that's good.
Your favorite breakfast cereal?
Raisin Nut Bran. Yeah.
You know what? I think I might have had Raisin Nut Bran the other day, and I actually liked it.
Yeah, it's really good.
Surprisingly, his is Captain Crunch without crunch berries, which makes no sense to me.
Had some this morning.
Yeah, and mine is Cinnamon Life.
Raisin Nut Bran. Is that what it's called? Raisin Nut Bran?
Yeah.
Okay.
That sounds good.
All right.
That sounds healthy.
It does.
Your favorite ice cream?
Anything with chocolate, peanut butter chocolate.
Chocolate and peanut butter. That's like the Reese's peanut cup.
Or the what's the Chubby Hubby?
Is that
Ben and Jerry's? The
Ben and Jerry's.
peanut
Ben
butter
and
filled
Jerry's?
pretzel
Yeah.
chocolate.
Do you ever go to the creamery here?
Yeah.
Yeah, they have some good stuff over there. So
Okay. All right.
why is Lavelle Edwards just plain old vanilla?
That's how we rolled.
That must have been his favorite.
It was.
Put a little topping
But
on that.
Isn't that
It's-
so like Yes, that's Coach.
Yeah.
Vanilla is his flavor. Everybody else has all these crazy ones named after him, and Lavelle's is vanilla.
I could just imagine him deadpanning vanilla.
That's his favorite. So, okay, your favorite BYU moment?
Probably just, my dad is a professor here. I've been here for 22 years, and each of my 3 girls have come through BYU. So just, I think the countless times that I've been able to just have them in my office or go to lunch with them on campus, it kind of, made the whole journey sort of worth it for me.
So it's a series of moments then with with the third generation being here on campus.
Kind of the legacy. Yeah.
What's your dad's name?
Jim Christianson, James R. Christianson.
James R.
Yeah.
He passed away in 1989, but he was a faculty here. Yeah.
Okay, so he set the path.
Yeah.
You followed it, and then your kids came through. Did they take any of your classes?
We did directed study abroad, so they kind of had no choice but to sit in on my classes when we were in London.
Yeah. How many children?
3.
You have 3, and all BYU.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we're both 100%ers.
Yeah,
all 5 of
I'm
mine
0%er. I've got 4 Aggie graduates.
Them to Logan.
And I got another one.
What's going on with this guy?
The junior now.
Every one of them to Logan.
Yeah,
but there's still
Sent
BYU
my money
fans.
there too.
There's still BYU fans.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So we went 5 for 5.
Yeah. So it's great.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Hey, thanks for coming in. And
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, Blaine. It's great to meet you guys.
We want your students who take your class and learn the finer things about literature to know that you tackled Marshall Faulk and got a stinger from him. Not everyone can say that.
Yeah. The only way it's come up in recent years is that they've started to notice this finger of mine.
Well, show that finger.
Did you do that in football?
And I did this in football my senior year. I had a little plastic cast, but we never got it fixed after that. And they indelicately ask about it. And that's
How'd you do that?
I finally said,
why your fingers pointed the other way? I would ask that question too.
Have you seen the
That's
movie
when the football comes out.
Remember the Titans?
Yeah.
And at the end, Coach, is it Coach Boone? That Denzel Washington plays.
Yeah.
He raises the football up, and he has a crazy broken finger.
Okay.
Looks just like that one.
When did you sustain that injury?
It was like 3rd game of the season. And we put this little half cast on that I just played with the rest of the season.
Just played.
Did you hit a helmet or what happened?
Yeah, I just jammed it against the face mask. And yeah.
But it's still, the ligament's still completely stretched out. They never fixed it.
As long as that doesn't hurt, that's awesome.
Well, they told me they could fix it. They said we'll either cut it off or we'll fuse it so it'll never bend again. So those are my 2 options. But
can you grab with it still?
yeah, I can still.
So it's just the joints got a little destroyed, and then that ligament is completely lax. But if it works, why do anything,
loose, right? Just looks funny.
Yeah, it's a conversation starter.
It is a conversation starter.
That's fun.
That's exactly right.
Hey, thanks for coming in.
Thanks, you guys.
Thanks so
Appreciate
much.
it.
Frank Christianson, 1992, 1993, taking on Marshall Faulk.
Jerome
Bettis and playing safety with Dewey Gray back there in the secondary for the Cougars and deep into his educational
when we talk
career
to Dewey,
as a
he'll be
professor.
so pleased that you came on.
Yeah.
Because he's a regular on the show. Yeah, he'll love it.
All right, give your students our best, would you? That's awesome. Been teaching at BYU since 2002 and still going strong in the English department. American literature is his area of expertise. And I love the stories of trying to tackle one of the greatest players to ever come through Lavelle Edwards Stadium.